Shahid is going to use these instructions to make a fizzy drink. Mix 5 parts of orange juice with 2 parts of lemonade. Shahid thinks he has 300 millilitres of orange juice and 200 millilitres of lemonade. If Shahid is correct, what is the greatest amount of fizzy drink he can make? So the first thing we're going to want to work out is which of these drinks is going to be the limiting factor when making the fizzy drink. So we can do this by working out how many millilitres of each drink we'll have per part based on the amount of drinks Shahid thinks he has. So if we start off with orange juice, we've been told that Shahid has 300 millilitres of orange juice. So if we do 300 divided by 5, this tells us how many millilitres each part would be equal to based on the amount of orange juice Shahid has. So 300 divided by 5 is 60 millilitres per part of orange juice. Next we can work out the lemonade. So Shahid has 200 millilitres of lemonade and only 2 parts are required for the fizzy drink. So if we do 200 divided by 2, so this means that 100 millilitres would be needed per part of lemonade based on the amount of lemonade Shahid has. So what we can see is the limiting factor based on the amount of drinks that Shahid has will be the orange juice. Because if we wanted to mix 5 parts of orange juice with 2 parts of lemonade based on the 100 millilitres, we would run out of orange juice. So therefore, the value we'll want to use per part will be 60 millilitres. So now what we can do is work out the volume of orange juice and the volume of lemonade that will be required. So if 1 part of orange juice is equal to 60 millilitres, then this means that 5 parts will be equal to 60 millilitres multiplied by 5, which gives us 300 millilitres. And next we can work out the amount of lemonade which will be required. So based on 1 part being equal to 60 millilitres, if we want 2 parts of lemonade, this will be equal to 60 multiplied by 2, which gives us 120 millilitres. So now if 300 millilitres of orange juice will be needed and 120 millilitres of lemonade will be needed, then the final thing we'll need to do for this question is add together these 2 values to work out the greatest amount of fizzy drink he can make. And 300 add 120 gives us 420 millilitres. And this is our final answer. Now this question's worth 3 marks. We'll get our first mark for working out how many millilitres each part of the drink is equal to. We'll get our second mark for working out the amount of each individual drink. And we'll get our third mark for adding these 2 values together to work out the total amount of fizzy drink in order to get a final answer. Shahid has 300 millilitres of orange juice, but he only has 160 millilitres of lemonade. Does this affect the greatest amount of fizzy drink he can make? Give a reason for your answer. So we worked out in part A of this question that the limiting factor for this drink was the orange juice, and 300 millilitres of orange juice was required to make 420 millilitres of the fizzy drink. However, only 120 millilitres of lemonade was required to make the 420 millilitres of drink. So therefore, even though Shahid has 160 millilitres of lemonade, only 120 are required. So therefore, the greatest amount of fizzy drink he can make will not be affected. So now the final thing we need to do is state that this does not affect the greatest amount of fizzy drink he can make, along with the reason. So we can write something along the lines of, no, because only 120 millilitres of lemonade is required to make 420 millilitres of the fizzy drink. And this question's worth 1 mark, and this is for the correct answer, along with a suitable reason.